Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, I thought I came to a hearing on sanctions, and what we're really having is a hearing on the legitimacy of the proposed agreement, which presents really kind of three categories of my kind of analysis. Number one, the Congress obviously plays a very large role in providing policy advice and certainly participating. And I think there's a lot of people, certainly in this room, who have expressed dissatisfaction with the agreement, dissatisfaction with whether we have mutuality of goals, whether we have kind of speaking with one voice, which is critically important if we're going to be successful. And so I understand and share your concern about the international community and your international sanctions. I share your concern about whether we can continue to test the water, so to speak, in little interim steps. But I also share the concern of very many members we've heard today about not having mutuality about the end goal, about not really appreciating and understanding what, and it's, you know, we can all say we do not want them to have the capability, but the bottom line is the devil is in the details in any negotiation. And so I would really advise and caution the administration, certainly both of you, through the Syria discussion, you've been very forthcoming. I think you probably have an office somewhere in the United States Capitol. You've been up here so much, but I just really believe that there needs to be more better listening to the concerns that have been expressed here today. I want to cover something that hasn't really been covered yet, which is the internal conditions in Iran for the development of this agreement. There's a lot of discussion, just as you are going through this process here internally. There's a lot of discussion about the internal politics of Iran and whether, in fact, there is a mature enough diplomatic situation in Iran to actually deliver anything that we might hope for as we pursue peace in the region. And so I'd like comments from both of you about how you see the internal politics and how you see how fragile is this agreement in Iran?
Well, thank you very much, Senator. First of all, I take to heart your imprimatur to us to listen better and to understand the concerns here of the United States Senate, and we will work and endeavor to do so. Secondly, as regards the internal politics, I would urge you, if you haven't had a classified briefing with our National Intelligence Manager for Iran, to avail yourself of that. I think you have heard some of it because you'll get some insights into what's going on. But in this unclassified setting, let me say my own understanding.
And I think I have a pretty good idea, but I also think it's really important for the American public to understand at least some characteristics of who we're negotiating with.
Thank you. The Supreme Leader is the only one who really holds the nuclear file, makes the final decisions about whether Iran will reach a comprehensive agreement to forgo much of what it has created in return for the economic relief it seeks. The Supreme Leader has, however, given to President Rouhani, who was elected to get that economic relief and was quite clearly not the Supreme Leader's first choice to be president of Iran, but was acceptable and is himself a conservative cleric. No one should misunderstand or believe that President Rouhani is not anything but a very conservative cleric. He is about preserving the regime, not changing it, not changing the Supreme Leader. So none of this is about regime change for him, nor is U.S. policy headed and about regime change. It is about addressing the concerns about Iran's nuclear program. So Rouhani was given a license by the Supreme Leader to go and try and see what he could do to get an economic relief with some red lines in place, including making sure that Iran could keep some of its capability. Indeed, then Rouhani passed off to Foreign Minister Zarif, who knows the United States very well, having lived here and studied here and worked for Iran here for nearly 30 years, to see whether, in fact, he could move the negotiation forward. So it is in that setting that we have begun to really make some progress because they want this economic relief. Okay. Additionally, I have to add that they do have differences among their country. There are hardliners who are much more conservative than the conservative cleric president of Iran, President Rouhani, who do not think that they should be talking with the United States or anyone else for that matter about their nuclear program. There are some people who are more reform-minded, but there is a general belief among the Iranian people that they have a right to enrich. The United States does not believe any country has a right to enrich, but the Iranian people do, and they have a great deal of pride and a culture of resistance to change, and don't particularly want to adopt all that the United States stands for, so they very much hold on to their own tenets. Undersecretary Cohen may want to add something from an economic point of view.
If I could just very briefly, Mr. Chairman, Senator Heitkamp, just picking up on what Undersecretary Sherman said about the election of Rouhani, it was, I think, generally understood as an expression by the Iranian people of a desire for relief from the economic conditions that they're currently facing. Among the skewed list of candidates, he was the one who was sort of most likely to try to bring about improved economic conditions through engagement with the West, understanding full well that the only way that he can get improved economic conditions in Iran is to get the sanctions lifted, and the only way to get the sanctions lifted is to address concerns with their nuclear program. This initial first step joint plan of action will not improve the economic conditions in Iran. But it was greeted with excitement among the people of Iran because I think they saw this as showing the potential, the prospect for economic improvement down the road. So, frankly, I think this next 6 months, as the Iranian people see through this joint plan of action that there is the potential, if their government negotiates in a serious fashion about the nuclear program, to get real sanctions relief, can create sort of additional internal pressure of the kind that we saw that led to the election of Rouhani, additional pressure to push their government to do what's necessary to address the concerns.